bring such a wide variety of programs through this new virtual environment that we're in, this new normal, to provide this sense of community and celebrate Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. So thank you. This is our first year celebrating APA Heritage Month, and hopefully in the future, we continue to do this work. So I wanted to mention that. And then very briefly, I know that Anna kind of wanted to give me a shout out. I'm gonna share my screen really quickly to this nonprofit organization, which is the Fatty Oxidation Disorders Family Support Group, which was born in 1991. And their mission is to connect and network with other FOD families and professionals around the world, and to provide emotional and grief support, family stories, practical information about living with these disorders, and medical updates to inform families of new developments. So if you're interested in learning more about this nonprofit organization, you can visit them at fodsupport.org, and then see also too if you'd like to donate. So I just wanted to mention that. And now I want to go ahead and introduce Anne. Anne McFerrin was born in Bangkok, Thailand, and immigrated with her single mother to America when she was 7 years old. After growing up in Manteca, California, she gained admissions to UCLA and moved to Los Angeles, where she graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Psychobiology. However, post-grad, she pursued her artistic passion and became a full-time fine artist for several years, where she sold various abstract and pop art commissions worldwide. While she enjoyed the creativity that art provided, she was also feeling isolated as a full-time artist. So during these years, she knew that she had a passion for making her vision come to life and building a community around it. When she saw a gap in the beauty market for magnetic eyelashes that actually worked, she sought to develop magnetic lashes in the styles that she would personally wear. 1 year later, on July 2019, after teaching herself everything from product development to marketing, Glamnetic was born. And 6 months since the launch, Glamnetic is now earning 7 figures per month in revenue. So without further ado, I want to present you all to Anne McFerrin.
Hi guys, how's everyone doing? Thank you for having me, by the way. This is amazing, and love that we are opening up like dialogue with the Asian community. And I'm glad that I can be a good representation of this.
Yes, we are so happy to have you. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you some questions. I know I sent these to you. And also for the audience, if you have questions yourself, just go ahead and type them into the chat box, and if we have some time, we'll be able to ask Anne some of your questions. So the first question I have for you, Anne, is having been born in Thailand, how has your cultural upbringing impacted your work today?
Yeah, so I think my Thai culture is super unique, that emotionally, while we're growing up, we've been taught to be super optimistic, respectful, and happy no matter what, and carefree, even if you're not. And my mom completely embodies this. It rubbed off on me too, because she's super optimistic, and now I can easily be swayed. I can basically deal with any hardship that comes at me. And I think it made me get to where I'm at today, because I always had the optimistic Thai attitude that like, yes, I could do this. And I think a lot of times it's made me take risks without thinking about the negative possibilities of doing certain things. Like, for example, I invested my entire life savings into Glamnetic. And I think I always have had a lot of faith in myself just to figure things out no matter what happens. So I think this optimistic attitude has really like helped me get further in life. And the downside of this though is that I've lost a lot of money in the stock market with this mindset, but it was fine because I always thought about money as something that just comes and goes, and you can always make it back. And how much money that someone can accumulate depends on the ability to make the right decisions and how hard you're willing to work towards like certain goals. And then also not culturally related, but I think being born in Thailand has really made me appreciate the opportunities I've had here in America, because Thailand was pretty much a third world country, and even more so when I was growing up there. I was used to growing up without much, and I was living with my great grandfather in his house, and there wasn't much availability in food. I was eating like rice and a piece of chicken every day because he didn't have much money, and even within the house itself, there was like no real showers or toilets. And there were like more like basins in the ground. And growing up like that, I think I became like really appreciative of all the things I was able to have later on in my life. And I worked really, really hard to get everything that I wanted because it was something that was never provided for me from the start. And so I think at this point in my life, I think I've become a pro at making the best case scenario with what I'm given because of the way that I was brought up. I think it's also made me really scrappy with everything that I do. I'm really good at getting out as much as possible from as little resources as possible. Like when I launched Glamnetic, for example, initially, I was the only full-time employee for 5 to 6 months of the company starting. And I mean, we're not even a full year old yet. Our birthday is in July. So it's almost there, but for the first 5 or 6 months of the company starting, I was like the only full-time employee. And at that time we were doing like over 500K in revenue a month by the end of the 6 months. And I think I just really maxed out how long we were able to reduce overhead because I ran all the socials, the content creation. I did customer service. I did the websites. Like it was like everything all encompassing. And these were all things that I was able to teach myself because of the internet. So I think everybody has this resource that's available to them that they're not quite using to the max. And I really encourage that for all students out there. I think you guys know how amazing of a resource like YouTube and just Google is for anything, but you can literally achieve like your whole life's goals just by going on Google and YouTube. And so, yeah, because everything was created by me instead of being outsourced, it did take a lot of hard work, but because of that, again, we reduced overhead for a really long time. And I think when you're starting any business, you never want to be put in a financially bad situation just because you weren't willing to do the extra work. So I think that's what I would preach to all the students out there is just like be dedicated and be willing to put in the hard work because in the end, you're going to be reaping the benefits of doing the work ahead of time.
Yeah, it sounds like you needed to be really resourceful in the beginning of kind of starting your business.
Yeah, I think it's like very important, especially in the current market conditions with it, there being so many brands. It's really hard to stand out nowadays. And I think you really, really have to put in the work and the effort and research, you know, how you can be a better marketer, like better at everything in your brand and just be like, have a better product. And that's the main thing. And that's what the whole company is based on is how good your product is. So that's my tip.
No, those are really helpful tips, especially for the students that are thinking about going to business. But we know that not all Asian American students go into business right off the bat. In predominantly Asian American culture, a lot of our families, our parents, highly encourage us to enter the STEM fields, science fields. And after completing your Bachelor's of Science in Psychobiology, what inspired you to start your own business and break that norm?
Yes. Okay. So I had that same Asian parent syndrome that everyone else had where I felt like completely compelled to be a doctor because my mom told me that was the most stable route to take. And I think the idea of entrepreneurship just didn't even cross my mind because the connotation it always had in my head when I was growing up was that it was really risky and like you were going to go poor, you know what I mean? And I never wanted to end up in hardship, obviously. And my grandma and uncle actually had started their own businesses in Thailand. And I remember all the hardships they went through. Like my grandma she lost her business. She had to sell it at a loss, and same with my uncle. So, but they restarted back again. But I just thought like, that's so difficult to go through life like that. So my mom didn't want me to go through that. And being a doctor protected me from all of this. She thought. So I actually lived in a really sheltered environment growing up. When I moved here from Thailand, I moved into like the small suburbs of Northern California. It's this little town called Manteca, California. If anyone's heard of it, but there's literally more cows than people. So pretty much I didn't have exposure to much information or culture in general growing up. I didn't really watch much TV, and I was just like, all I did was study all the time. I never went out, didn't even drink or anything until I got into UCLA. And so I moved from Manteca. I drove down here to LA, and it was like a big awakening for me because I actually have never seen so many Asians in my life, because I was so used to being like the only Asian girl in the class all the way from third grade growing up. So it was like a big culture shock. I didn't even know what boba was. I was like, what is all of this Asian food I've never even seen before? So I felt like super whitewashed pretty much growing up. My stepdad is white, so it was a big culture shock. But I saw that everyone was making their own decisions, and I saw everyone being independent. And then I started seeing all the potential avenues that I could go into. Up until that point, art had actually been a big part of my life. My mom painted murals for money, and I always assisted her. I was also painting as well on the side. Like I kind of started this like t-shirt business where like the people would ask me to paint like hand painted graphic t-shirts, and I would charge them like $90 for it. And I just had like a bunch of like requests for that. So I kind of like had a natural inclination towards art, but I never saw it as like a big moneymaker or some like a potential real career path for me. So then I took a drawing class at UCLA, which actually completely changed my view of art, and it made me feel like it was so much more exploratory and fun, and there was just so much more potential and possibilities. It actually reshaped the way that I thought about everything. That's how breakthrough it was. And then I think the turning point for me when I felt like I could actually make this a career was at the end of the class. Was like the capstone project. I created like this huge like installation, and basically on Instagram I got an inquiry about it, and someone wanted to buy it for like $10,000. And I was really, really shell-shocked about it. I felt like for the first time I had confidence in myself to make art a potential career, and it could be more than a hobby. And so that's what I ended up doing for the next 4 years. Instead of finishing my pre-med degree at UCLA. I mean, I finished my pre-med degree at UCLA, but instead of going forward and actually taking, basically going into, medical school, I just was like, okay, I'm just going to try art. I'm going to try art out for 4 years and let's see how it goes. And I think it taught me how to network really, really well. And so I met a lot of incredible people along the way that kind of like helped shape my journey to where I am today. But the caveat with being an artist was that it felt really, really lonely. I didn't see anybody the entire day. I would just be sitting in my studio, painting all day, every single day, pretty much. If I wanted to get art projects or commissions done, that was the only way that I could do it, was by myself. And it was very laborious. And after 4 years, I just felt pretty exhausted, and I wanted to do something that was a lot more scalable, where I can impact more people's lives. I loved, one of my favorite things about being an artist was like creating pieces for people. And then when I would give people the pieces, like the reaction that I would get was so amazing, and how people like actually love the painting and what it meant to them. And in the same way, I wanted to do that, but on a larger scale. And I was trying to figure it out. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, this is kind of a dead end for me. I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life. But I think that's what you got to do, is you got to take risks sometimes to get to a dead end, and then realize you don't want to do that, to then like shift. Because if I hadn't tried that out, I would have maybe thought in the back of my mind, maybe I want to be an artist, and not fully commit to what I'm doing today. But I think if you take risks and try things, even if you aren't really sure of it, it's your thing, at least you get it out of the way, and then you can continue and be fully committed to the next thing that you're doing. So I think to back it up a bit though, just with my story and everything, I actually moved to America when I was 7 years old from Thailand. So this is pretty much what like inspired Glamnetic. I again moved into a really small white town, and I felt like I was like pretty alien. I looked very different from everybody else. It was a culture shock. I had straight black hair. Everyone had blonde hair. Girls would come up to me and ask to touch my hair because they've never seen straight black hair in their lives. And they were like, oh, your hair looks really soft. So they would come up to me and ask me to touch my hair, which is the craziest thing ever. But I was born in Thailand where like you weren't allowed to wear makeup at all. You had to have your hair a certain length, and more or less everyone had to look exactly the same. I was actually born left-handed, but my teacher told me I had to train to be right-handed like everyone else. And so basically when I moved here, I was made fun of for looking different and for having smaller eyes. Kids would call me like Chino or derogatory names pretty much. And so naturally it made me very self-conscious of my Asian eyes, and I sought out ways to make my eyes appear larger than they were. And lashes seemed to be the only beauty item that achieved this for me. And so basically growing up, I became entirely dependent on lashes, and I refused to go outside without them because I was so self-conscious about my eyes. And after years of wearing lashes, I had spent so much money. I tried so many different lashes. I wanted to try to find lashes that I could reuse often, that didn't get so crusty and like with the glue on the band. And I wanted an easier solution than lash glue in general. I think everyone struggles with lash glue, and it's painful to remove. So I started hearing about magnetic lashes and I was excited about the idea, but the execution, once I tried it, was actually really poor. And I couldn't even get them on. Like they were the type that sandwich your lashes together and they looked really thin and plasticky. Whereas I was like into the super full look, like what I'm wearing. And I was a full-time artist at the time when I kind of came up with this idea. I thought of like the idea of creating lashes that were magnetic, but were full. And it was more for myself, but I realized that this was an amazing idea that I think a lot of girls would want to try and wear. So I started Googling online, like how to source vendors. I had no idea anything about product development. I just Googled everything. So I finally started like running into like a lot of different vendors. So I contacted hundreds of them and having them make samples for me. And I told them, I want you to take this full lash and I want you to glue 5 magnets on the band. And a lot of them have never done that before. Like at the time, like magnetic lashes kind of had just started coming out, but for sure there was no like magnetic, like full lashes, like mink full lashes. And a lot of them failed, like 98% of them failed. And it was like horrendous. The samples I would get were like so gross. Like there was like glue, like still tacky, the magnets were hanging off. But I finally found like 2 good vendors that could potentially make the lashes for me. And I went into production on like 5 of my favorite styles, and pretty much also started formulating a successful magnetic eyeliner with good holding power. And from there, pretty much Glamnetic was born end of July 2019. And I think, that's pretty much how Glamnetic started. And
Right.
I actually started feeling like I didn't need lashes anymore to feel confident and beautiful. And I found lashes more of like a training tool on how to feel and act confident. And that's where my slogan, be magnetic, be glamnetic, came from, because every girl knows that feeling when you put on lashes and you just feel like 5 levels hotter. I feel like that's a true power of makeup, and that's what girls are obsessed over. So that it can make you feel your best, and therefore it's like, it makes you feel more powerful. And I feel that putting on lashes just helps you get there faster.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, and thank you for sharing your story. I know that for some people it's difficult to kind of to share certain parts about themselves that are pretty intimate. So thank you for kind of giving us a snapshot of your upbringing and how that influenced where you are today. And so clearly, it seems like you're very accomplished in the business industry, even having been there even having been in the business industry for such a short time. But how do you navigate an industry that's primarily male dominated as a female Asian American?
Yeah, I think you can see it as a negative and as a positive. You can see anything like that, in general. But I think I use it to my advantage because I think males are just more willing to give advice to a fellow female, and that I just feel like they may perceive other males as a threat. I don't know, but I encourage everyone out there, male or female, to always look for advice, even because you'd be surprised the tips that people actually want to give you, because everybody loves talking about themselves. And I think that's just the fact of humankind, is um, always try to ask for the life story of somebody else, because you'd be surprised what you'll get out, because people love to share their life story, I think, especially what they've been through. So I wouldn't say it's actually like been a negative for me personally.
Okay. No, thank you for that perspective. I see the chat kind of blowing up a little bit. I see mentors so important. The next question here kind of has to do with that a little bit. In the Asian American community, family is one of our most important values. I mean, for most communities it is, but in particular with the Asian community, it's almost like a hallmark value. So who is part of your family, right? And who supported you throughout your journey, and how do you stay grounded?
Yeah, I definitely would not be here without my mom or my stepdad. They're definitely my role models. So my stepdad helped me and my mom immigrate here from Thailand, and my sister. And so both of them have always been my biggest supporters. But my dad, actually, he's 80 and he's super old school. He's worked as a janitor since the beginning. Like when he first started working, he was only paid 10 cents an hour. And he worked his way up to be the head manager of his company within 40 years, making more than everybody else. And he literally, his whole entire life motto has always been work really, really hard, no matter what you're doing. And so he's retired now, obviously, but what he does to make money on the side is he's a rodeo photographer. And for somebody being 80 something and he's sitting in the ring, like doing rodeo photography is so insane. But that's like his passion, and he works really, really hard, even though like his age, he never lets age come in the way of that. And my mom, she's always been like my biggest supporter, even when I decided to not pursue the medical field anymore and throw away my $100,000 education from UCLA. My mom's biggest wish was always me to be just truly happy. Even with art, she knows how like volatile that was, and it's a hard job. She was always supportive of me to change careers and do whatever I wanted to do. And even starting Glamnetic, she thought I was crazy. She thought it's gonna be really hard for me, and she thought it was stupid for me to invest all my money. But in the end, she supported me. I called her up like 8 months later, and I'm like, "Hey, mom, we're doing over $1 million a month," you know. And she didn't really comprehend it, but she was proud of me. And I think because she's so grounded, I'll always stay grounded. She's never overly impressed with anything I do. But she's always happy for me, even if I'm not necessarily doing super good. She's always like there no matter what. So I think that sense of level-headedness never makes me rest on my laurels. I always want to try harder for them, because I want to like eventually get them a house. I want to like set their lives up perfectly. And I'm always working as if I'm just starting out, and that any moment this could all be taken from me. I think that's the mindset you have to have, though, if you want to be successful and keep the success that you've made.
Right. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because my next question is, as you know, the boss of your own company, what are some of your biggest struggles that you face on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an ultra stressful position, because everything is on your shoulders. And also, since I'm the face of my company, I think anything that we do wrong is my fault, and I get like angry DMs if anything goes wrong. So I think when you're to blame for the company, it's like it's also like even a heightened level of like just pressure in
You
general.
kind of feel like you're under a magnifying glass a little bit.
What was that?
You kind of feel like you're under a magnifying glass a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Always. I mean, but I think that's another thing, you have to have like really, really thick skin and just be okay with people just being people and just saying their opinions, even without like context around the situation. But I think that's the reason why I like sharing my stories, because then people have context about around like me and as a person, whatever, like maybe they'll have more sympathy if something does go wrong. I'm like, sorry, we're like a really small company. Like we just started, I'm new to this. But you know, in the end, it's hard because ultimately there's no excuses no matter what. And you have to own up to everything. And I think the other thing that's really stressful, right, is whether or not your company is successful is based on your ideas, and not only the ones that you come up with, but how well you delegate those ideas and how well you can execute it. Also, it's like super long hours. I work 16-hour days every day, including the weekends, and it's nonstop. So there's a lot of sacrifices you need to make, and you have to understand that you have to be on it 24/7, and you have to put your own needs aside just to be. That's the only way you could be 100% all in,
Right.
because that's what it takes to compete in the current competitive market conditions. If you want to continue to grow at an ultra fast pace, that's what it takes. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it depends on, you know, what you want to achieve with your company. Like somebody could totally start a company. And I think it's Glamnetic has just been, I think we have like crazy goals for Glamnetic. Like I want to be the biggest lash brand in the world. And I mean, some brands are okay with just being in retail, and you know what I mean? It depends on where your goals are, and like the bigger the goal, the more sacrifices you need to make.
Right. Yeah, as we kind of mentioned in the beginning of this event, some students might be thinking about owning their own business or entering the business industry. And you shared a little bit about the growing pains of being your own boss and owning your own company. And as successful as your business is, I'm sure that you've made some mistakes along the way. What are some of the mistakes you wish you could have avoided? And were there any mistakes that, or I guess, what are some of the best mistakes that you've made?
Yeah. So I think when you're starting a business, especially without having any prior experience, you're gonna expect a lot of mistakes. And I think mistakes are good because they're instrumental to you growing and learning, as long as you're learning from those mistakes. So one of the biggest mistakes I made in the beginning of Glamnetic was I thought I needed other people to help me get started. I actually started off with a business partner that wasn't a great fit. And we were like arguing constantly, like even from before launch to launch and after launch. And pretty much within the first month that Glamnetic started, it was already at risk of being completely dissolved because we were arguing so much. We couldn't agree on anything. So I think I wasted several months and money and time on just like not being able, if I had just believed in myself and just took initiative to start something myself without depending on someone else, this wouldn't have happened. I think my advice for everyone out there is just to make sure if you're going to have a business partner going into a business, you have, you know, a history of working well with this person for an extended period of time, because when you go into a partnership with someone, you are like married pretty much. Like your entire lives are now, they're now combined together under one life. You talk to this person every day. Like everything depends on this other person. So that's my biggest advice about that mistake. And I know now like how to find a good business partner. And then in terms of like best mistakes that I've made, I think because we've been in hyper growth mode, we have been dealing with inventory issues since day one, just because we sell out so often. I mean, that's a good problem to have. So now, even now when we have like a full stacked inventory planner, it's been so hard for us to get fully right how much inventory we need, because we've been doubling our growth month over month, which is not normal at all for a company. So it's a great problem to have, but it's something that we're continuing to learn from. Supply chain in itself is just such a huge monster to tackle. especially when you keep adding more SKUs like we are. Like, I don't know, my goal was to have like over 50 lash styles on the site before the end of the year, which is crazy, I know, but I was just like, I think I want more selection. I want to be like I want to have like the highest selection of lashes out of all of the brands out there. And due to COVID-19, it's actually made it harder because logistics has gotten so complicated since COVID happened. We have now several suppliers who are now having to split their shipments into multiple batches because COVID-19 decreased the amount of flights and therefore like flight space. It's been really time consuming to deal with, but I would have to say it's a good problem to have because we definitely don't have a problem with selling enough.
Right, right. Um, so in you talking, it seems like having a concrete vision is just so important. Being able to be adaptable in a changing environment. You bring up, COVID-19 and how that's kind of affected your business and how you've had to adapt. I see these as skills that make an entrepreneur successful. So what advice would you give someone who wants to become an entrepreneur, and what other additional skills should students be developing in college in order to better prepare?
Yeah, I think you have to be really brazen. You have to learn to go for it without second guessing yourself, first of all, because if you second guess yourself, it's going to delay things just happening for you. And learn to trust your gut. And I think in college, you need to learn to build strategic skills, not just memorization skills, because I learned a lot of memorization skills being a pre-med, being like in pre-med. But I think also I learned how to think critically because it was, the sciences. But I think learning critically can occur in all fields, like even sociology, political science, right? But I think you have to understand why you're in school. I think you can get really caught up in the class and like, okay, I really want this A. But I think in the end, you have to think long term when you graduate, what skills can I gain from this particular class in the sense of strategic thinking that that I wouldn't have otherwise, because you're paying for this education. You need to make sure that you're reaping as much benefits as possible. And I don't think I was thinking long-term at all when I was in UCLA, because I was in a bubble and I was like, I have no idea what I want to do in the future. So I don't even know what I'm trying to learn right now. I'm just trying to get this A. So I think also, if you're going to start a brand, you need to have a lot of market research and be knowledgeable in the field that you're trying to go into. But even then, it's not going to fully prepare you for, once the business starts, all of the issues you're going to have to deal with. But I think at the point, like once you're actually in your business and as long as you're fully 100% committed, you're going to figure it out. And you're going to rely on your critical thinking skills that you've gained from taking all of these classes, as long as you focus on actually learning those strategic, like critical thinking skills. Because running a business is like a giant puzzle, and you kind of have to learn how to piece everything together. And yeah, I think you have to be smart and savvy. And I actually didn't even have the best grades at UCLA. I was like a 3 point something, like definitely not a 4.0, but in the class, I basically had more common sense than other people though, like at the end of the day. And I think that's how you win as an entrepreneur, is having a good combination of street smarts and analytical and strategic capabilities. So I think if you can choose certain classes, try to go for classes that make you think on a deeper level besides memorization and regurgitation. So yeah, that's going to be like my biggest advice there.
That's so helpful, especially for folks that are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs. Would you say that these skill sets are something that you also look for in an employee, or are there any other additional skills that you would want to mention?
Yeah, I definitely think somebody that's super, super savvy and is a self-starter, meaning like I don't have to, like if I tell you to do a certain task, you research like the ins and outs of like how to properly complete that task. If it requires like some auxiliary information that I didn't mention, Google it, like people that are self-starters are the ones that are going to succeed in life, like no matter what, like not even just as an employee, but as a boss. So you have to learn how to take ownership and just just basically own what you're doing. And because in the end, even if you are an employee, you kind of are like, for us, like what we always tell our employees is like, even if you are an employee, you are kind of like a mini business person inside a bigger business. Like if you're in customer service and you're doing customer service, think about yourself as like owning the entire customer service experience, and think of yourself as like owning a customer service business where that's like, you know, there's an end goal for everything. You have to make the customers happy. If it's marketing, how do we get more followers? You know what I mean? There's so many roles, and they all kind of have their own sense of like ownership and leadership within it. So somebody that takes charge and is willing to be a leader in what they're doing is gonna really do well. And yeah, I think if you're super hardworking, smart, dedicated, you're going to be able to accomplish and go beyond all of the tasks that are given to you. And basically what I'm going to do then is I'm going to give you more responsibilities, and then quickly you're going to get a raise, you know, the more responsibilities that you have. So you can actually move up in a company, especially like a company like ours where we're a startup. Even though we're super, super fast growing, we're still a startup. You're going to also be able to grow along with the company. And then if you don't know how to get into a company, I would say definitely be an intern. It sounds like crazy, like, oh my God, I'm not going to get paid for the work that I'm doing for a few months. Well, in the end, like if you prove yourself in the internship, you're going to get that full-time position. You're going to get offered that full-time position because we're going to see that you're an asset, and we're going to want to hire you full-time. We don't want to lose smart people, you know. No one does. So if you think logically that way, if you're a business owner and you see somebody come in, even though they're like, you know, an intern for a couple of months, you don't want to see them leave. So you're going to offer them a full-time position, and you're probably going to even promote them if they continue to do really well and like get more responsibility.
Right. This is all such great information for our students. I mean, like, I feel like I'm getting golden nuggets, right? Just from hearing you speak. Clearly, you're just so passionate about what you do. But could you talk a little bit about what keeps you motivated on a day-to-day basis? I'm sure that right now, presenting to Glendale Community College, you're talking a lot about the positives and the struggles, but how do you keep yourself motivated day in, day out?
Yeah, I think I have many factors motivating me. So on one side, like I have my strong motivation to do well for my parents. Like I mentioned, I want to buy them a big house. I just want them to never have to worry about money again because they took care of me from the start. And I want to give also a really good future to my kids. And on the other side, I have a really strong passion for product development and giving the world something that they've never seen before, but provides so much value to their lives. I love making people happy, and I love seeing their reaction to the product and how it's helped their lives. Just kind of like how I used to present people with the custom painting that I've done, except for now it's a mass-produced product that I can touch thousands of people. And I get what like warms my heart and what keeps me going also is like I get so many messages from girls, for example, who never been able to put on lashes before, and now they can. It seems like trivial, just you know, selling lashes or whatever, but you know, wearing lashes makes you feel beautiful, which makes you feel confident and happy. And if I could be part of that, like that's priceless to me. And I think also I have such a strong passion for product development. Like I currently spend 5 hours a day on product development, like no joke. We were up yesterday till like midnight, like doing product development. And normally CEOs or founders, they don't even touch the product development. They normally outsource this part of the business. But I think it's so important for me to be 100% involved in what goes in the hands of the customer. Because ultimately that's what matters the most, is what goes in the hands of the customer. And I think my like background being an artist has made me feel so much passion about this aspect. And I just want to create products that have never been seen before and that people find super useful and helpful to their lives.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. Now we're going to move on to just the Q&A from the chat. So we'll spend the last 15 minutes answering some of the folks' questions that they put down. So, and we have several. John Ta is asking, did you have people who are close to you that doubted you? And how did you mentally overcome that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's just something, like I was saying, also, especially as a girl or like a pretty girl, like they just see you as a pretty face. That's just how it is in society, and you kind of just have to deal with it. Even people, like even my ex-boyfriend, he completely doubted me being able to do any of this. And I think what you have to do is not take it so personally, and just know that that's just a fact of humankind. That's just a trait. It's not something against you personally. And how you prove them wrong is you make your success speak loud for you. Because in the end, that's all that matters, right? Is like
Right.
showing like, wow, look at how successful I am now. Like, but not actually having to say it. You just have your success speak for you.
Right, right. Thank you. JC's asking, and this is a question about credibility, like doing research and finding credible resources when doing, I guess, what's it called, like market research. So how are you able to discern the good information and the bad information when scouring through like the internet?
I think for us, it's a little bit more unique because it's product based. I mean, I guess most businesses are going to be product or service based, but because we're e-com and we're in beauty, we basically do like, I will go in and do a competitive analysis of like other beauty brands, like based on the product that I want to get into. And I want to see what's out there. And I just lay it out there for me to see exactly what everyone else has. And then like where I can go in and maybe spin it completely differently than what's being offered right now. And I also think another good way to approach business is like, if you're seeing a problem, for example, I saw that there was no way for girls to easily apply lashes, especially like bigger ones, like the ones that I love. I saw a gap in the market and I went for it, right? But you have to see what's out there currently. It was kind of easier for me though when I was product developing. I didn't see anything like what I was doing. Maybe like one other potential brand that was kind of similar, but not really. And so I knew that there was going to be a lot of market share here. And that's kind of the way that you should think about it. And you should look at it like that. It's just like factual products that exist, instead of trying to figure out like articles and stuff about like what people think the trend is going towards. Does that make sense? I would look at what's actually happening and what's actually happening, what's actually factual and already existing, versus like somebody's article about something, a trend that might actually happen.
Like an opinionated response, right? To
right.
Yeah, I completely feel that. You know, with your business, as much success as it has, do you have any, do you overcome like copycats of your unique product? And how do you go about navigating that?
Yeah, there's always going to be, especially if you have a good idea, there's always going to be people that try to copy you. And there's actually nothing you can really do about it. Like, unless obviously they're completely stealing your brand name and like using your images and all of that, then that's a whole other thing. But just like the product itself and the idea, you can't really stop that. That's just the world. This is how the world innovates, right? Like just the fact that magnetic lashes even existed allowed me to then develop this. If magnetic lashes hadn't existed in the first place, I wouldn't have been here. So I think everyone's kind of a copycat of everyone else. It's just a matter of like, if you continue to innovate and do it better than them, you're always going to be ahead, and it doesn't really matter. Also, there's just so much, there's so many people in the world. There's enough money to go around. So I don't feel like it's actually a negative thing. If anything, it's going to help me spread the word about magnetic eyeliner, because a lot of people have never heard of it before.
I'm glad that you bring that up. So, I mean, I know that you talked a little bit about how you're planning to expand your line of magnetic eyelashes, and you're talking about magnetic eyeliner. Are there any other ways that you plan to diversify your products in your company?
Yeah, so the reason why I chose the name Glamnetic in the beginning instead of like Glamnetic lashes or just anything with lashes on it, is because I knew that I wanted to get into other areas. I think for us, it's really important of to own this niche space. It's super niche, and I think it's really easy to grab market share because we're so niche. I think it's better always to be more specialized when you're starting off instead of being so general and selling everything. So I think you start small, you grow like vertically, and then you go horizontally, right? So for us, we wanted to get into like the analogous categories like brows, even like face, like maybe potentially even color cosmetics, but also like tools and stuff like that. There's so many things that we have in the works right now towards the end of the year. I can't say what they are, but there's so many things that we're working on right now. And this is also why I've been spending so much time on product development. So I've been so excited about all the new things that we're bringing out that's not lashes, because now that we've built such a strong community of girls who like absolutely love our product, they'll buy anything that we release, just because they love the brand so much. I think that's also really, really important. You have to start with a community. Have to start building a community, which is actually really hard to do. If you're a real brand, that's what you do. You build a community of girls that's always gonna buy whatever you put out. And they basically love what the brand stands for and everything about the brand. Then it's really easy for you to introduce other products out there.
Yeah, so building up almost this reputation within the business community, it sounds like. In the field of business, oftentimes you're gonna have to network, right, and make connections. So John's asking, how do you go about networking, and do you have any tips on trying to keep those connections?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot harder now, but back in the day when we weren't in quarantine, I would actually go to events quite often. And it also helped because I was like a micro influencer because I was doing art, but I had to have a presence on Instagram if I was to sell my art. And so I was also like an influencer in a way. So I got invited to a lot of events, and I actually met a lot of other influencers, like bigger ones, and was able to like connect with them and get their numbers. And then now, like when I've started the brand, I've like been able to gift them. And then like we have a relationship where, you know, since they love the product and we know each other, they're like willing to post and stuff like that. So I think that's important especially if you're starting off in this terrain. The influencer marketing is still like a big factor, as well as performance marketing, which is like a whole nother thing you need to like do research on. But yeah, I would say my biggest advice is just try to be as friendly and as open as possible. Always have a smile on your face because people want to talk to you if you don't have a smile on your face. And don't be afraid to approach people. And even if you get rejected, that's totally fine. There's like a billion people in the world, you know?
That's great, thank you. Another question on market research from Nicole. So how did you exactly go about conducting your market research? Was it like just through the internet, or did you use other mediums? And did you feel like you constantly had to make different iterations of your product based off of the market?
Oh, yes. Okay. So for the market research part, I actually just Googled like magnetic lashes, magnetic eyeliner, and just see that like what is out there. And then from there, you can sort of like compile everything out in like an Excel sheet. So everything's like laid out and organized for you. And then you can see like what everyone else is offering. And you're like, okay, how can I make this product better or whatever? In my case, there was really no products out there like that. So it's totally different. But I think it's a lot harder to start a product that had like no history of being made before. I think you can totally make iterations on things that already exist. And I would watch a lot of YouTube videos on beauty because even though I was into beauty, I was an artist myself. I wasn't necessarily like a professional makeup artist. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos of other people's opinions on other beauty products. If I didn't want to buy them myself, I would go through YouTube and just like see what people thought about certain products. And yeah, I feel like it's just a lot of Googling. And I think it's a lot of, like I said, critical thinking, because it takes critical thinking skills to know what to Google next. You know what I mean? You don't know where to start, but I think start somewhere. And then if you have critical thinking skills, you're going to be able to go to that next step just intuitively.
Right, right. Yeah, this is all just so awesome. I'm sure our students are you know, excitedly jotting a lot of this information down because I feel like it's just so helpful. Um, it's 2:56. We just have 4 minutes left. If you want to just briefly answer this last question that John's asking, do you ever feel burned out from running your business, and how often do you self-care? This will be our last question.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It is like really, really tiring sometimes. And sometimes I'm just like, okay, I just want to sleep in and like not go to a meeting, or I just want to sleep in and not have to answer my phone for once. But it's not possible if you want to be a business owner. You have to be putting out fires constantly. And you have to be available and on call no matter what. But the hours where there isn't chaos happening, I definitely recommend like try to get in a workout, because that's the only thing that's going to make you feel sane, because it releases endorphins. And especially now, since everybody's staying inside all day long, it's really easy for me to just literally be on my computer the entire day and not move. So I think the time that I would self-care is like actually putting in a workout. And that's kind of like the only thing that I do in terms of self-care is like doing a workout. Um, and obviously I have like a skincare routine kind of like at night and stuff. But other than that, that's the main thing that I do. You're also, I think when you own a business, you become so passionate about it that it doesn't feel like work. So I think you do get burnt out, but not to the level that you would think, like from the outside looking in, because you're just so like into it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much again for being here and for sharing all of this valuable information with us and our students. On behalf of the Asian Pacific American Heritage Month Planning Committee, we want to thank you for being here and for spending this Friday afternoon with us. Thank our students for being here as well. That's it for me. I don't know if Kayla or Virginia has anything to add before we close this up.
Yeah, I just want to say again, thank you so much, Anne, for joining us. It's funny, I actually was like taking notes on my phone while you were speaking. Such great advice. But yeah, I just want to real quickly mention for our attendees, we will be having a raffle today again for GCC students that attended with our camera on throughout the event and fill out the evaluation form. And I'm just going to send the link to that form right now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
This was such a great way to end our first ever Asian Pacific American Heritage Month celebration. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you
guys.
everyone for coming.
Thanks, everyone.